Good evening all. I didn't expect that to happen. There we go. Let's turn that one down. Oh, and I've got that one as well. If loud, okay, yeah. I'll turn it down a bit. There we go. Not distorted, I think. It's just loud. Right, very good evening to you all. I've so far seen Mike G0MJW, James G0DQH, Colin G4KLB, and Richard GI4DOH, and that will be the order. Good evening to the watchers, Don over in Ireland, and David G6GZH, and others. News from this week's been a fairly quiet week. We're planning on a BATC committee meeting next week to discuss the exact plans for CAT 21. We expect the event to go ahead probably only on the Saturday, and probably with some accommodation to make it a bit more socially distanced, but we'd like to get everybody together out in the open air or a big hall if we can. So more news on that next week. I'll put it straight round to Mike. Roger, good evening. I'll add you to the list at the end. I'll publish the list in a moment. So straight round to Mike. G0MJW to take it from GHGKQ and the BATC.
Okay, let's set a reasonable audio level, hopefully, and good evening, everyone. Thank you, Dave. Your audio is fine, actually. It's just the problem is your audio is really good, and a lot of people are really quiet. So there's a huge dynamic range, but it was all fine, no problems at all. Not been doing very much this week, actually, since the last net. The only thing that I have done, which I will show you here, is, and you'll be bored with this because I've shown it before, is the frequency converter that I've been designing for 10 meters for DVB-T. The second set of boards arrived, as I told you about last week. Well, since then, on Sunday, I built the board up. It didn't take very long, and it works just like the other one, only it's less prone to oscillate. In fact, it's quite a bit cleaner. So that's all ready to go. The oscillator I've got in there is a very cheap one from eBay. It was €5 for 5, and I thought I'd ordered 2, but I accidentally ordered 10 because I ordered 2 lots of 5. I'm not the only person to make this mistake, though. A certain person who will be on later has made the same mistake, even after having been warned, so I need to be careful, but at least we've got quite a few of those oscillators now. And the advantage is they're €1 in each per device, whereas the standard ones are £17. I think the 116 megahertz version might be cheaper, so it's something to check. But they're just standard frequency converters. Actually, I could probably point at it, can't I? Just to prove it's a live picture. It's there, that bit there. Sorry, that bit there. And these things, by the way, these mixers are the cheap ones off AliExpress, which are ADE1H compatible. Again, they're very much cheaper. So worth getting. People are asking about 3D printers as well on the net, I noticed, or on the forum. I won't give a recommendation, but I can tell you what I'm using, and Colin maybe will tell you what he's using. I have a couple, actually. I've got one which is a FlashForge Dreamer, I think it's called, and it works okay. It's up in Bolton at the moment because I don't need two here. So it's up there for when I'm up there. That works fine, and I've got a Prusa Mini, and that's very good too. And they're both about the same price, although the FlashForge has gone up a bit recently. It's now about £400 with VAT, and the Prusa is £360 with VAT. If you live in the Channel Islands, you can knock 20% off. Grumble, grumble. Right, okay. That's more than enough from me. Who's next? Oh, it's James, G0GQH. So over to you, James. Hopefully it's working again now. And let's see what you've been up to. G0MJW.
Okay, just checking the audio. Okay, fine. Yeah, I've had a few problems just this last week or two. And what it was is one of the Ethernet connectors. On my port stone, instead of the Ethernet going into the Ethernet port, it goes into a Ethernet to USB converter, and that was loose. And I should have spotted it because I'm looking at it now, and there's a little LED lit on it. It wasn't last week. So that was what the problem was last week. So one of the things I wanted to show you was this. Now, I can bring that up. Now these, if I can get it just right, these fit over the end of the Ethernet connectors, and they're very effective. They've got, when you get the pit break off, you can put these over the top, and they actually do work because we use them at work. And that's a better view there. They do them in various colours. They just slide over the top of the Ethernet. I'm not going to push that one on because the cable's actually okay. But they do them in various colours. They can have a yellow one, they can have a green one. I borrowed these from work, so there you go. That was what I wanted to show you last week, and I couldn't. So there you go. Also been playing with my 290. I've replaced the memory battery. I have access to the proper parts and the let's just say the battery as well. So we're all operational again. Anyway, that's short and sweet from me, and if I put the other camera on a second, I can actually show you the little devil that was actually playing up. Where are we? Yeah. If I can move it over on there. That was the problem, and I can see I'm pixelating rather badly. There you go. So that, as you can see, fits inside of the port stone, and if it stops pixelating, that is, there's the port stone. I've never known it this bad. Usually it behaves, but there you go, not tonight. So switch it back on the other camera. So short and sweet from me. So I'm not sure I'll be around for the second over. I've got quite a bit to do. I hadn't realised until just this last week or two just how busy a life I lead. Because I ended up in A&E on Monday, and then they gave me a and I'm pleased to say that everything's fine. So false alarm, I think. Anyway, that's all from me. See you maybe next week. G0DQA.
Okay then, thanks a lot, Jim. Excellent. That's very good. That wasn't too bad at all, Jim, actually. Very good. So obviously the problems you had last week are resolved, so that's very good. Okay, that seems to be working. Well, I'm taking my life into my hands here today because I'm running a completely new system with with lots of new bits that I haven't tested yet. I've just sent some signals into SQ by attaching an aerial to the Pluto. So we're using the NVIDIA graphics card, and I was using the new script from F1EJP that's got the DVB-T etc. on it. I don't really need that necessarily, but it said it had some other fixes. I've had some issues with lip sync. The previous version seems to be fine. I tested the new one yesterday, and the lip sync was out a little bit. I tested it again this morning, and it seemed to be absolutely fine. Didn't seem to be an issue at all. So I decided that we'll use the new one this evening. But I used it on SQ, and it was out a bit. I went back to the previous version, and it seemed to be better. I can just do that. That seems to be as good as anything. so there we go. I think I've got a thingy here that does that sort of thing. It becomes a bit annoying after a while, but anyway, you get the idea. I'm not sure how far it is at the minute. It's not perfect, but it's within. It's reasonable, that's for sure. And I think it does vary a bit when you're using different parameters. It could be that I'm a little bit too close to the edge, and maybe I need to back a few things off, I suspect. But I haven't worked that out yet. But I say it worked. It worked absolutely fine earlier, and then I used it this evening on SQ on this Pluto, and that decided to play up. Right, I better move along quickly now, actually. So what I've done is I took delivery of another Pluto, which is revision C, which is the newer one. The main reason for waving this about in front of you is to ask whether I think I saw something on the forum or overheard something being mentioned regarding Earth mods and that sort of thing. The question I want to ask is if you've got one of these newer ones, which has got other features I won't go into, are there still mods to be done? Let's not worry about the TCXO and all that sort of thing, but is there any other mods that need to be done to the new one? I thought I read or heard somewhere that that some of the things were not entirely effective, but someone may be able to answer that question. I haven't done anything to either of these two. I'm using it at the moment in its original form with its stock oscillator. Nothing new at this stage at all. I noted when I plugged it in, it came up with firmware version, I think it's 0.23, I think, or 3.2, probably 3.2 actually, thinking about it. But the new version from Analog Devices is V, I think it's 0.33. So what I did is I extended the frequency in the usual manner, and I enabled the second CPU in the usual manner. I did the update to the latest Analog Devices software, and it undid all of that. So I had to re-enable it again. Then I've loaded the Perseverance software, and also, and it didn't work. But there's a patch on F5UII Christian's site with a patch in there. I couldn't really make a lot of sense out of some things, but anyway, I loaded that patch and it all sprung into life, and here it is working now. So many thanks to him for that, because that I think it's something to do with push to talk or something or another. But I'm not. I just fumble my way along. So that's good enough for that. I'll do that one on the next round, actually, because this is long enough for me, really. I'll just make a note to say that later. 3D printers, Creality Ender 3 would be my suggestion for anyone starting out who didn't want to spend a fortune. They're really very, very good. I've had a few printers. I've built most of them, but I've played with various printers. The Prusa that was mentioned is an excellent choice, actually. And if you've got the money, then just go straight for it, because they work really well. But the Ender 3, it doesn't matter which version really, is the business, and is really cost next to nothing. And the results I've had have been absolutely superb. Can't say anything about it. Although one caveat, 3D printing is a hobby in its own right, and it does require a bit of investment, and a little bit of maintenance and very careful setting up. You will have to do some research. That Sanderson thing that was mentioned, Tom, is it? What's his name? I can't remember his name. But yeah, he's taught me a lot. So it is a bit of a hobby. It's not like a consumer electronics type of thing where you can just unbox it and it'll work perfectly. It doesn't quite work that way. So there is a little bit of research needed. So that's that. Right, that's enough from me for this over, I fancy. So it is now. Is that the right call sign? GI4 DIH, it says on there. I wonder if that's it. We'll find out, won't we? We'll find out. So over to you, G4KLB, who now has to manage all this. I can never get this to work.
It's G4 KLB as a group. This is GI4 DOH. Assuming that that it is indeed me, I don't think there is a GI4 DIH. I think I would know about it if there was one. So yeah, printers. Taking last things first, I'm just I'm having a little bit of trouble actually decoding my own signal at the moment. I think, yeah, I've just come up on the Ryde as well as the Winter Hill. So yeah, I've Creality Ender 3 Pro, and as Colin says, yeah, it's a whole new ball game in itself, and I've spent quite a lot of time me doing things with printer as opposed to the printer doing things for me. So actually, that was my little show and tell. A couple of years ago at Friedrichshafen, when Friedrichshafen had a rally, I purchased this little 7-inch screen, supposedly worked with Raspberry Pi and other things, and it came with a little printed circuit board like that. So I finally, 2 years on, got around to trying to do something with it. So on the subject of 3D printers, just making a frame for it. How difficult can that be? Just a simple frame with a couple of little attachment points at each end. This is back to learning all that you need to know about your 3D printer. In that all of a sudden I was having to use a fair percentage of the print bed, and all of a sudden all the settings in the firmware became very critical, and I spent practically a day messing about with things just to get everything to fit on. One of the issues with a sort of aftermarket or do-it-yourself fan thing for the printer, I have to offset the print position a little bit to avoid fouling the right-hand side of the frame of it, and that in itself was okay, because all I had to do was tell it that I had a smaller print bed that it had. Well, all of a sudden I needed the full size, and it gave me a few headaches. But I am pleased to say that today this is just a little test piece for this printed circuit board, which will be on the box that the display will mount on. So that was printed. I forgot to tell it to do supports, and it printed these big long openings. It was printed horizontally, so it was technically along the top there printing into thin air. So it goes to show the importance of messing about until you've got your extruder temperature, speed, cooling, and all the rest, such that you can technically bridge a couple of centimeters. So it shouldn't take that long, but it is a steep learning curve, and I have a lot to learn. The next thing is making a little switch panel. If that shows, I will be cutting the perf board to size, but because that's effectively 0.1 inch matrix, I find to start down the layout, I've had to change the grid in my CAD software to inches as opposed to millimeters to make it easier to do all the alignment and all the rest. Or possibly I could have done it in 2.54 millimeters. I don't know. It's all part of the learning curve. Dave, what you were saying about Cap 21, I would love to come over for that if that were possible. I'm keen to flex my wings and get out of this place. So I would be very happy to nip over for a day or a couple of days for that if there is a full real event going ahead. I would certainly like to do that. Mike, your converter seems interesting, but I don't really want to start another project at the moment, and maybe further down the line. And again, James, that little clip for your Ethernet leads when the little tab breaks off and they keep working loose, that seems like quite a clever idea. So anyway, that's enough for me for one go. I'll pass it on now to Roger G3IUZ, I believe it is, with the group. This is GI4DOH.
Right, girl. Good evening to you all. Hopefully you're getting both sound and vision. And thank you once again for inviting me onto the net. Gradually getting a little bit more used to everything. I've abandoned for the moment the the headset that gave me trouble last week, both with the, I wouldn't call it air conditioning, but the fan, and the being on top of a mountain. I do apologise for that again. And then the mic went rather down onto my shoulder. So I'm using the mic on the C920 this evening. So I hope that's doing the job for me. So as I say, getting a little bit more used to everything. I'm still trying to make up my mind between OBS and vMix. I'm using vMix again at the moment. I have been playing with OBS. They are in some ways similar, in some ways quite different. So I don't know whether anybody has any strong opinions on that. I think the majority of people seem to use OBS, so maybe there's a good reason that I haven't discerned yet. So I would appreciate comments on that. On the matter of 3D printers, yes, I've been involved with that, both with filament and with resin. If you want really fine definition, resin printing is the way to go, but it's a lot more complex and messy. But boy, you get some superb results. But a bit limited, unless of course you spend a fortune and get one with a large tank. But interesting nonetheless. But as far as filament printers, I've had several. I think I would certainly recommend the Prusa if you can run to it, particularly in the kit form. I got my two grandsons who came to stay, would be a couple of years ago, when they were 11 and 13, and they built the whole thing for me. A little bit of supervision, but not a lot. The instructions were that good that the 11 and 13-year-old together were able to put the whole thing together, and it worked first time. So I think that's quite a tribute to the instruction books and the guidance and setting up procedures. So they were really rather pleased with themselves with that, and I've used it a huge amount since then, for all sorts of things, for amateur radio and so on, including building a 1 meter wingspan Spitfire, which sits up. I won't bore you with that, but it sits up on top of on top of one of my cupboards here in the shack. It's supposed to be radio controlled and flyable, but I've never done any radio control flying, so it's purely a conversation piece, shall we say. As far as BATC, I'm hoping to do a bit of terrestrial if I can, and to that end I've been building a couple of preamps, which I can just show you. If I just put the other camera on a moment, just a second. Right, this one I think. Right, now these, some of you may know these. These are from the Australian mini kit. There's two of them. I've built one for 77s and one for 23 sems, and they come with a nice little box. Unfortunately, it's no good recommending them because you can't get them in this country anymore. Mini kits have declared that they will no longer export their products to the UK because since January the 1st, the VAT situation, which has arisen, of course, for reasons you will all be aware, has now made it uneconomic for them to deliver their goods. They get anywhere in the world except the UK. So that's really very disappointing, I think, because I think they're quite highly regarded. Right, well, I think that's it from me. Now it goes, I think, to Michelle in Switzerland. So HB9DUG This is G3IUZ with the BATC Net, and
I do. I do. Good evening all. Pleasure to see you again tonight. Well, that week the weather was really bad in Switzerland, so I have not done much about television. Especially I wanted to go a little bit outside, but that was not too much possible. But today it was a really nice day with my friends HB9 Alpha Fox Oscar. We did test of between us on DVB-S2, but mainly on DVB-T, and using on my side I was transmitting, and on his side he was receiving, and using this type of antenna, which is Omni, and I had a lot of long pipe like this, which are WR75, but just an adapter between WR90, and you can see they are quite long. And well, for this first date I just did a transition with SMA. So I was transmitting with the ports down, and going to my transverter, 10 gig transverter, and we did a lot of tests, and it was quite nice because if you see on my my test card here, you can see the map of the Lake of Geneva, and from my place I see almost all the lake, so it's quite nice to do tests from my place. And luckily enough it was not too much rain, so I could put the antenna through the roof window. And we've done tests all the afternoon. It was really a good day, and we enjoyed. So what else? Oh yeah, I wanted just to should be better. So I will start again. So forget to copy the mic on the scenery. So this Sunday we have a special GA, so activity day on microwave, mainly on 10 gig. Against the Mont Blanc. So it's very interesting. We have a beacon which is installed somewhere in Savoie, as you can see on the other side of the lake, pointing to the Mont Blanc, and we use it to beam to this beacon to adjust our transmissions. So
the good years, we are between 30 and 35 people using the Mont Blanc for this very nice morning, Sunday morning, which is coming. And we are also using now not only, well, I forget to say that day is basically on SSB, but now with the new hardware we have for DATV with small symbol rates, we have also started to do transmission across and through the Mont Blanc on the DATV, on the DVB-S2, and I've been using that last time for the EIRU contest. So I'm very lucky because the pictures you see is from my place. So I just need to go to the limit of my field, and it's a big field, and then I can install my station and see the Mont Blanc very nicely. So, and the last point, okay, passed again the mic, so should be okay. I think it's a very nice challenge for the BATC team. I did the profile between London and Mont Blanc, and as you can see on the profile, it's absolutely nothing between London and the top of the Mont Blanc, which is at 4,400 meters. And the distance is something like 800 kilometers. I've seen some very large dishes in some pictures of the member. So challenge now is to hear the beacon, the F1 Zulu Oscar Delta, which is on 927 up of the band for the 10 gig. Okay, and the beacon is CW and also Opera. Okay, so I'm going to give back the mic, I think, to Dave. Thank you for
Thank you, Michel. Yes. In a flat Earth world, it would be lovely to hear the beacon on Mont Blanc. This is GKQ, returning to the BATC Net and HB9DUG. Yes, if only the world was flat. 927. I will put that on my make a note of that on my portable kit, because I generally do listen for some beacons, but I don't see a lot of hope from around here. But there we go. Pleased to hear you've been playing with 10 gigs, and yeah, nice aerial. vMix versus OBS. Roger. The great difference, I prefer vMix, but it isn't free for anything about any reasonable definition. You have to purchase it. I decided against that, and I've gone for OBS. I don't find it as easy to use, but it is free at high definition, which is why I use it. And you can do, I'm actually getting to like it more. I'll put some talk about what I'm showing on the screen in a minute. I'll just go through the things here. Yeah, Cat21, Richard, we'd love to see you there. Those of us who have sort of pre-planned have booked hotels on the Friday and Saturday night. We're thinking of having some sort of dinner on the Saturday night. But as I say, all the plans will be announced next week after our committee meeting. Apologies, Richard, for getting your call sign wrong in the listing. Colin, the Pluto Rev C, Noel is the expert on that. He's had some earthing issues, some power supply loop issues, but I'm not sure it's as bad as the earlier ones. And good discussion about routers with Mike in the chat. The Netgear GS108, so I've got a couple of them and a GS105. And they run most of my network here. Okay, so what have I been up to? This is the 23 SEMS tray that I probably showed you last week, but it's got some added bits. So what I've got on it, on the front there, I'll show that better in a minute, is a meter. But I put in a bandpass filter on receive. That's 1255 megs plus minus about 10 megs. A second preamp and a third preamp. So the system has a masthead preamp and PA. So with about 20 meters of feeder, I can still end up with 1.5 dB noise figure on 23 SEMS. It comes in from the masthead preamp, goes through that bandpass filter into the two preamps there, which get it up to a reasonable level for a mini tuner. On the transmit side, the meter there measures the PA current remote, which actually measures how much current goes down the line to the PA. And there is one thing missing at the moment. Just make sure that's still in shot. Yes, it is. That's the meter. What's missing is a drive selector there for how much drive goes on. And put the meter in the middle of the green bit and it's still linear. Essentially one drive up till you're in the linear region, and just there that BNC back to back will be replaced by a switchable attenuator to achieve that drive level adjustment. So that's the hardware construction. On the software side, there's a minor update to ports down 4, just about ready, went out as development release this week. Stand by a minute, I'll put the camera around. I'll be back in a minute. Just moving the camera across to normal place. I must get another camera sorted out. But there we go. That will do. Okay. On the software side, also working on Longmind. Michelle, I did some more tests today with this new means of locking on DVB-S2. If the frequency is within 10% of the SR, I can achieve a lock at MER -1 on FEC a quarter. So it really is good at locking. But you have to know the frequency exactly. But that shouldn't be too much of an issue for a terrestrial work on 70 SEMS. It's even okay if you've got a locked LNB on QO100. So it really does lock well. The other thing I've been looking at is signal level, and to some extent prompted by my 23 SEMS train. You know, how much signal level do you need to put into a mini tuner to make it work properly? Well, quite a lot is the answer, hence the 3 preamps. But Phil has done some... Oh, sorry. I'll turn the power up. Phil has done some work on the software, and we should be able to provide a readout of how much power you need to put into mini tuner. Yeah, Charles, I think your dish must have taken a knock, because I'm not sure. On my 1.2, I'm D5. Yeah, I think your dish has taken a knock. GB3PV has gone on the air. We've done some diagnostics on that. It seems to be being knocked out by some radar. And the only other thing I was going to mention is last week I spoke about problems with shipping to Europe. We think we have resolved them. We've sent a few parcels to Europe, so we'll see whether they arrived, but I think the BATC shop is back on the rails for shipping to Europe. But we shall see. Okay, John has just arrived. If you're ready to go now, John, you can have a take it next. So G7JTT to take it with Mike G0. Oh yeah, he will take it, and then round to Mike after you, John. G7JTT to take it, GKQ and the BATC Net.
Cross that's going to work. Yes. Right, 1 2 1 2. Yes, we even got audio. It still works. Amazing. Yeah, I've literally just walked in, just changed my top. Not even brushing the hair yet, so you have to apologise for that. Missed the entire net, as I say. I've only just got in quick within the last few minutes. But as soon as I've missed the last few, thought I'd better put in an appearance. I had planned to work from the garden this evening, sorry, but there wasn't enough time, unfortunately. Could have done similar things to what I did the other evening. Absolutely nothing done at this end, other than I have installed GNU radio on my laptop, and yeah, another steep learning curve, I think. It was primarily just to try and have a go at this DVB-T stuff, but I think I need to do some reading first, because at the moment it's certainly not as straightforward as I thought it was going to be. So I shall just keep playing. Just trying to think where I am at the moment. Yeah, not a lot really. So, but anyway, it's I'm on. I've made it, and I think that's an achievement. Oh, that was it. Actually, I moved, my dish had moved as well. You're saying that, Dave? I noticed the other day when we had all that rain over, I actually lost the beacon altogether, and it was struggling even on some of the bigger signals on there. So I think the problem I've got, and I guess most of us have, is that the poles we clamp to are not really up to the size dishes we're using. I think the thing I clamped to is only probably about a 2-inch pole. So ideally, I think I should have put maybe a 3-inch or maybe even 4-inch pole in there, which would have gripped somewhat more. But anyway, it is what it is. So with that, I shall pass it around to Mike, and a very good evening all. It's nice to be back on it. G0MJW, G7JTT in the group.
Right, thanks John. Hopefully I'm now getting out okay. Michael, here's a path plot. Now it's a little bit of a cheat because I don't have the tile data, the terrain data for Switzerland, because it's a little bit out of the range. I could put it on there, but it's not on my computer at the moment. So the curvature of the Earth is equivalent to an 11-kilometre high mountain. So although it might be okay in terms of the not many hills in the way, obviously the Earth gets in the way. You knew that. And this just demonstrates the fact that I haven't actually got round to getting all the data on the server yet. But the other thing is that the loss over a smooth Earth is actually higher than the loss over a diffraction edge. So probably the 292 dB that's predicted under normal conditions is, yeah, not all that unrealistic. But if you go to abnormal conditions, things will get a lot better. And when there's tropo, the loss will fall down really low. So it definitely works. I know, because I've worked HB9, not on DATV, but on 10 gigahertz. In fact, there was one contest in the 90s where the conditions were so good that we were getting QRM from HB9 on 2 meters and 77s, and we worked on 23 and 13 and 10 gigahertz with 5.9 plus signals. It was amazing, but that doesn't usually happen on contests. It was actually VHF National Field Day as well. I think someone must have got the date wrong or something. Anyway, there's one thing I did want to show, which I just spent a while trying to find the video, so we'll go over to that. This is the Flash Forge Dreamer, and it's different from most printers in that the build plate goes up and down but doesn't go backwards and forwards, which has some advantages and some disadvantages. But here it is, printing in real time, of course. I haven't speeded this up at all, honestly. Printing a camera adapter for itself. And it does that quite well. I haven't got a video of the Prusa Mini. I must take one, actually. The thing about these things is they're fascinating to watch. I suppose the novelty wears off after a while, but they are really fun to watch. Printing things, and it just sort of slowly emerges over time, and it's really interesting. Of course, you have to set them up properly, but this one in particular, it comes almost completely assembled and set up, so it's very easy to get going with it. As the Prusa is a little bit more difficult. Some of the really cheap ones, they give really good results once you set them up properly, but the art is all in the setting up, and that's basically the second one you buy, not the first one you buy, or maybe it's the third one you buy. Anyway, incredibly useful for all sorts of useless things that you can make. Right, whose go is it next? Oh, no one commented on the transverter, by the way. Richard did. He said he wasn't going to build one for a while. I've got a few spare boards, so I think it's ready almost to go. I'm hoping that Colin's going to beta test one at some time. I know Martin G4 FKK has built one, was in the process of building one, and I think Graham G3VZV might build one as well. So there'll be lots of us working on 10 meters, realizing we can't work each other, and hoping that the spreader key comes out. And for the cat, it's a good idea to book a hotel. I'll do it once we've actually got an idea where we're going to stay. And when it is, because I'd quite like to go to that as well, I think. And Richard, we'd love to see you there. I've not met in person, so that would be good to meet all these people. I'm sure there's lots and lots of goodies which will be traded as well in the event. It's always worth going to cats. Okay, who is it next? In theory, it's James, but I think James said he was leaving because he had too much to do. So it's probably Colin. So I'm going to assume that is the case, unless I see anything on the chat otherwise. G4KLB, G0MJW.
And I left a small pause there. Not very long, I'm meant to leave it. Okay, then I left a small pause. So that's all okay. Just find I'll find where my camera is. There we are. That's good. Excellent. Right, okay. Well, that's quite a few things to talk about, really. I'll try and simplify them. We did the 3D printer. Yes, about the mini kits. That's a real nuisance, actually, because I need a couple of mini kits items. Really, there are alternatives, but I quite like the mini kit stuff. I've built quite a lot of it. I went for a different preamp. I went for the standalone one, and they work really well. Actually, I got them for 23 sems, 70 sems, this, that, and the other. Used quite a few of those things. It got me started in surface mount. The very first 23 sems amplifier and preamp, actually. First time I'd ever done any surface mount. and it was relatively straightforward. So I haven't looked back since, really. Hopefully they can resolve that, because that's that's a bit inconvenient, really. You can get it sent to Europe if you've got friends there, but that's about all. So hopefully that can be sorted. I'll go back up in order there. Transverter, yes. Well, seeing as I've ordered all the parts and got some boards being made, then I guess I'm likely to. I could have had a board off of Mike's, really, but I'm thinking that it lends itself to other frequencies with other filter components, so it might be beneficial. I used JLPCB for the first time, so it's a bit of an experiment, so we'll see how that works, because Mike's one was just slightly over the 100 centimeters, millimeters, sorry. That would be a big one. My PCB way, who I normally use, they wanted to add $19 to it. They're happy to do it, but anyway, I'm trying. It's just an experiment. That'll be here in a while, a couple of weeks or something. So the bits are already on their way. Yes, and as for those, you didn't quite tell me quick enough. You did say, are you going to buy two? Which I did immediately, and then I was talking and looking at the screen, and didn't quite notice that they come in 5s. So I've got 10 as well now. maybe at a cat we can lose a few. There we go. I had a bit of a scare this morning. I was looking for the Raspberry Pi. I've just had my teeth done doing. Just been to the dentist. I had a tooth ended up in my mouth in the night. That was a bit scary. But I've had it put back in, but I obviously am still not accustomed to it. I was looking for a 7-inch touch screen for a Raspberry Pi, and on Farnell's, and it said no longer being manufactured, and I thought, flipping heck, or words to that effect anyway. And I got a bit of a scare, but fortunately there is another one just like it with a different part number. No idea what the difference is. I couldn't actually see any difference at all, so I don't know what. Maybe it's one that you have to put the board on the back yourself, which is how they started actually. But the recent ones I've been buying came with the board already attached, which I take off. Anyway, but so I don't know what the score is, but they are still being manufactured, because I ordered one today. So, but a different number to the one I normally order. So I don't know what happened there. But that was that was a bit of a scare, because really for the port stand the 7-inch screen is the one to go for. Other people mess about with other things, but really you really want the 7-inch. It's a good screen anyway. Thanks for the information about the revision C mods. I'll have to find out what Noel's found out with that then. But I thought they meant to have fixed that, but maybe not entirely. Maybe it might again be to do with network type things. That's when they kept falling over. I haven't really had too much problems with them. I've done the mods on my Bs, but I haven't needed to. The one I'm using at this moment hasn't got any mods. It's straight out the packet that today had software stuck on, and it seems to be working as far as I can gather. What we've been building, we're building Ryde receiver number 4. You can never have too many, you see. Never have too many. Same as projects, never have too many projects. I've got more projects on the go than you could shake a stick at. I tell you, it's a lot. This one's waiting for a heatsink. So there we are. We've got as far as we've made the front panel. This one has 2 extra holes for monitoring the Raspberry Pi and such like, and also the fault indication, because I fit the little boards in there as well. Or I only actually fit one in the ones that go in the repeater, because I only ever need one. I actually don't need any actually, because the supply is supplied by a conventional receiver. But if they were to have a go, and we're just using Ryde, then we would need a supply to supply the preamp. So they have the little boards in there which protects them. So that's good. So that's coming on nicely. The only difference with this one to the repeater ones is I've added an HDMI, so I can use it over here when it's not needed for the repeater. It shouldn't be needed at all, strictly speaking, but I like to have a backup of everything. So that's what we're doing now. This is what I call the long ride. I call this the it's a bit of a play on words, but I call this one the long ride because it's quite long. Anyway, it amuses me, but there we are. So that's that. That's the 3D printer there. That's the Ender 3. The other thing I've been doing today, and the reason I had some of these bits out, is on GB3SQ we use two Ryde receivers, and they work really well. But our system doesn't accommodate HDMI, so we have to use the 3.5mm jack. And I noticed using this system that we had a lot of noise, quite a lot of background noise on there, which I think is a Raspberry Pi issue more than anything else. And it was mentioned that isolating transformers were needed, and this afternoon, I fitted a couple of these little isolating transformers. I've told this thing to actually focus. They are, which are SP68s. There's lots of other ones about, but this one happens to match the impedance of SQ and obviously the output of the other. So that's absolutely fine. They're quite expensive, and there's plenty of others you could use. But I'm really pleased that I put my hand in my pocket a little bit for these little devices, because it's absolutely brilliant. It works perfectly. I think it was Rob M0DTS who first came up with the idea. It might have been mentioned by John before, but John selected this particular part. There's plenty of others. He did give me alternatives, but the frequency range of this one was better. John has also given me other ways of doing it, actually. If you use a balanced amplifier, then you don't need to worry, and you don't lose any frequency response either. But that's he did say we could have built that into SQ at the time, hindsight being a wonderful thing. But the audio transformers on the output of the Pi has completely solved the problem. Some people said they could still hear a little bit, but really the difference is dramatic. So we did a bit of a live demo earlier on SQ on that. That'll do, I think, because I probably got other things, but I'm conscious of the fact I'm going on a bit. So I expect my lip sync would have moved. This has been running for an hour and a half now, this script, actually. Okay, I'm searching for the... Yeah, so it's over to Ireland again. GI4 DOH to give him his proper title. G4KLB. I won't bother with I'm not going to bother with the test card now.
G4KLB is the group. This is GI4DOH in Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland, fit me. 12th of July week and all the rest. You know, you gotta get it right. You know, sort of very well. Some people are very territorial. Can't say I really mind that much. Yeah, Colin, I hope dentists are doing better over in England than they are in Northern Ireland, the DXCC entity. The reason why I wasn't on last Thursday was I think the previous day I'd been to the dentist who decided it would be a good idea to remove a tooth, but only succeeded in removing half the tooth. They're not allowed to use drills in this country, so I've been referred to a specialist place who will see me sometime in August to remove the remaining bits, and getting through an awful lot of painkillers these days. But such is life. Going back through the last few minutes. Michelle, that was a lovely bit of waveguide that you have there. Because I'm sort of new to these sort of bands and all the rest, waveguide is something I don't actually own any of, and therefore I haven't used in the past. But there is the future, so it's something I'll be watching out for at things. Mike, what you were saying about Cap 21 and hotels and the rest, yeah. I have options to either fly in or come across on the boat to Birkenhead from Belfast, and it's not too far to Coventry from there. I worked for Plessy, ultimately GEC Plessy, back in the 80s for about 10.5 years, so extended into the 90s, and spent many's a happy day in Coventry at the works there. One thing and another, so I haven't been in Coventry actually since then, so that would be nice. I have a daughter who lives in Birmingham as well, so I could sort of justify on the family scene making that sort of trip, just taking in something to do with amateur radio in the process. I mentioned a couple of times over the last few weeks about the LDO, the 12-volt LDO for the Winter Hill, how it didn't turn up and I got a refund, and the other company I tried sent me a refund after a couple of days because they didn't have any stock. Well, the original company, I actually received the LDO a couple of days ago, but it's a bit late now because, as was suggested, I had reworked another type that I had in stock, so got that one for the future if I needed it, if I ever need it. And also I mentioned a fortnight ago this little satellite finder, and a couple of other people seemed to think that it was a reasonable piece of kit, and indeed the problem that I had with the yesterday channel was an AF LNB. that was all it was. It wasn't alignment or anything, it was the LNB. But being able to see what I'm doing while at the dish does make a big difference. And also on the 1.2 centimeter dish here, just check in on the ADR satellite, I was able to get another half dB just through being able to see what I'm doing while adjusting the dish, as opposed to a rather ropey remote log on to the PC using my iPad at the range of my Wi-Fi. I think one of the things that I've been working on as well, because I'm on my own these days with nobody to help me put in aerials up and down, what you can see here to the left of the dish, it's actually, you don't really get the perspective, it's much closer than it really looks. That's a 10-meter Moxon on top of that pole, and I've now got a tilt-over bracket that allows me single-handed to tilt that over. Well, that gives me the opportunity to swap out the Moxon for something else, for 2 meters, 70 centimeters, 23 centimeters, or whatever. So that's one of the things I hope to put the new easy get at facility there to be a bit more adventurous. And if you take it up, I can see the Irish Sea from here. I might be able to get across into Scotland and beyond the north of England on some of the higher frequencies. All something for the future. So that's enough for me for tonight. Wish you all a good evening, and hopefully see you all next week. And I'll pass it round to Roger again, G3IUZ with the group. Forgot to go back to the other camera. This is GI4DOH.
Right, well, fine. G3RUZ returning to the BATC group, and thank you very much indeed for all the interesting information that's dispensed. You mentioned last week that I have been sort of watching this for some time, trying to glean some of the ATV secrets or obscurities, shall we say. So, the other thing I meant to say was just to thank Colin for his almost nightly stream of consciousness on the BATV and the repeater matters. I quite often one of the lurking watchers, Colin, and again one gleans all sorts of little hints and tips. So thank you for that. A long way from the repeater, of course, so I watch it on the streamer. Talking of again coming back to the matter of 3D printing, I just pop this one on a moment. This is another another preamp. This is one for 2 meters, but the box it's in is all 3D printed. It's quite a well-known design, but the box is interesting because it's hermetically sealed. The lid comes over, and these clip down, and there is a rubber gasket, and this is a completely sealed box with a breather in it. With a membrane breather, so that keeps keeps any moisture out, but allows for temperature change. So it is entirely 3D printed. Yeah, having a 3D printer I think is almost essential in amateur radio these days. It is so useful, but of course you do need to perhaps come to terms with the actual design. I use Fusion 360 myself, but if you can't find someone where someone else has done the design, or you want to modify it, then obviously it's helpful to have mastered a CAD program. There's lots of them around. Fusion 360 I use. I think I mentioned that I do quite a lot of model engineering, and with CNC and so forth, it's fairly vital that you have a fairly comprehensive program. But just for 3D printing, there's lots of simple and freebies around, so that shouldn't be too much of a problem. Anyway, that's fine. I'll sign out, I think, on this over. Thank you very much for the OBS-C mix advice. Duly noted. I will pursue the OBS a little more closely now, I think. So thank you for that, and thank you. Good night to you all, and look forward to hopefully coming again next week. So it's G3RUZ down in deepest Somerset, signing with the BATC Net.
Check. 1, 2, 3. Well, Mike, thank you for your demonstration on the profile. I'm well aware of these things, as with 3 other friends from HB and France. We own the world record on the 10 gig FM transmission about 15 years ago, and to achieve that we did it over the Mediterranean Sea between the south of Italy and Spain, and we were using something called ducting. It's, as you know already, it's a kind of channels which are created depending of pressure, temperature, wind on the sea. And we were using this to achieve this record. And to help us on that, I had access to software from the Navy, US Navy from San Diego. It was quite fun because I find out they were talking about ducting and all these things, and then I write to them, and a few days later I receive an email, and attached to the email a zip file with software. Well, of course, the software which could help to predict the ducting for different frequency. And basically for 10 gig, the best place to be was between 10 and 15 meters over the level of the sea. And this software was with a database of 10 years of meteo information, which of course are public from the Meteo organization in Geneva. Okay, so it was a little bit a joke for tonight. Regarding John with GNU Radio, well, GNU Radio is my dada, as we said in French. So I'm ready to help you. And the first things I can do for you is that you should go to the Swiss ATV site. Lately I've done some new GNU radiograph for DVB-T using the Lime, SDR, and Pluto. And the nice thing is that you may be aware is environment called Conda, which runs on Windows, Linux, as well as Mac. And one guy called Ryan has in fact compiled a complete environment of GNU Radio 3.8, and everything to run the different SDR. So very easy to install. You just take the zip file, and it's execute file for Windows, and we'll install Conda and all the radio modules for you, and then you can download the graphs I've done for DVB-T. It's what we are using this afternoon test with HB9 AFO. Okay, for me tonight, and it's where the TV guide very carefully, because the wish you a nice end of evening. Looking forward to seeing you next week. And I give back the frequency to Dave. No, it's to John. To John. So okay, he can comment what.
All right, so let's go through. Yeah, good evening, yourself. Yes, very much appreciate any help going, to be honest, Michelle. I did manage to get your graph from your Swiss DATV site, but what appears to be the big issue for me is that Windows doesn't really natively run GNU Radio, and it's finding I've got 3.9, 3.8, and 3.7, and none of them run the graph. They all come up with various different errors because certain modules are not included within it. So I need to find either one, as you say, that does it completely for you, or I've got to learn to compile it myself, which Radio Conda. Okay, I shall look that up tomorrow, or even maybe later on this evening. I can find it, but but I think that is the biggest issue with GNU Radio on Windows. I know some of the modules don't work at all, and some aren't supported on Windows, etc. So probably might be the easiest thing to do is just do a virtual machine or something within Windows and do it that way. But I should certainly look up the Radio Conda and see if I can get that going. With regards to ducting, it's not. Oh, right, okay. In that case, then I will have to get a virtual machine running. I've sort of got a virtual machine on this thing, but I'm not 100% sure if that's working properly at the moment. Anyway, I shall have a play. With regards to ducting, though, it's an amazing thing. I'm sure Noel's told the story plenty of times, but in the year dot whatever it was, Noel and I went down to Dungeness and did some 23 SEMs or 70 SEMs, whatever it was. Anyway, we had 10 gigs as well, and the duct formed along the sort of North Sea up towards Holland and all up around that way, and it was just phenomenal. And the funny thing was, you could actually see the ships coming out, and as they were coming out of the harbour, you'd lose it. You'd literally see the front of the ship just going past, and then you'd lose the signal, and then all of a sudden you just see the back end of the ship go past, just as it went out of the way of the signal effectively. So it really did show you that the duct was probably only a few meters above the water, etc. But it was just phenomenal. We had dishes and stuff there, but in the end we were just using the feeds and the LMBs just handheld, and it was still sort of back in them days. It was FM type stuff, but it was still P5s, absolutely rock solid signals. But the interesting thing was that Noel at the time, I believe, was using his company phone, and it kept latching onto I can't remember if it was the French or Belgium or Holland, whatever it was. Anyway, it kept latching onto the European cells, and every time he was talking on it, it was costing the firm a fortune, I should think, because it was as if he was roaming all the time. So, but yeah, really, really good stuff. So it's probably something we should probably explore slightly more, but that probably involves some more time, doesn't it? So anyway, right, I'm just one last thing actually whilst I think of it. I remembered I had this thing. It's one of these supposedly HF multi-band verticals. So you've got the old whip on top, and you've got the coils. And looking at the data, it's supposed to work on 4 meters and 6 meters. So I may have a play with that later on and see if I can't get 6 meters or 4 meters working on it, because I haven't actually got an aerial for that yet. But I guess everybody's going to be on horizontal anyway, so probably ain't going to be of any use, is it? Right, round to you, Dave. G8 GKQ, G7 JTT in the group. I believe it's round to you anyway. If not, whoever's next.
G7JTT and the group G8GKQ. That works. Have a picture now. Okay. Oh, an interesting set of comments there. Some chat about Raspberry Pi 7-inch screens. There was some guarantee that they would be available for a number of years. I think 2025 or something like that. So that was one of the reasons we switched them, because they were going to be available. But there are a number of models, but they're all compatible. Yeah, ducting, amazing. What you can do with that, but need to be close to the sea, and I've moved away from it rather than nearer it. GNU Radio is, I think, is a bit like 3D printing. It's another hobby in itself. I'm glad Michelle has mastered it. I played with it and can just about do stuff in it, but it's another whole set of skills to learn, that's for sure, to actually build the graphs. To load other people's graphs isn't so difficult. On Linux, and I did all my stuff on Linux. I think that's about all the comments, so look forward to talking to you all next Thursday, and we'll hopefully have some more news about Cat 21, but we are looking forward to putting something on, probably on the Saturday, with the dinner on the Saturday night. It's the current proposal, and taking account of all the restrictions. 73s, and thanks for coming on. G8GKQ, closing the BATC net and leaving the frequency free. Good night.